Hi, my name is Katie Duda, and I am the Russian professor at Mercyhurst. And I'm going to walk us through how I use Blackboard, the Blackboard Gradebook. In particular, I'm going to talk about how I create a column when it's not associated with an assignment or a test, how I can create a rubric in Blackboard, and then finally how I can adjust the preset letter grades in Blackboard. So let's get started. So we're going to hop into one of my classes. And it is a class that has already got the brand new shell, so hopefully this will be more helpful as we start to use and design our courses with these new shells. However, I have already done my course copy, so I already have the attendant Blackboard gradebook from previous semesters, and I've started to go through and edit it for what I will need this semester. So we'll go down to Grade Center, which is in the gray course management menu. And I'm going to go into Full Grade Center here. So the Full Grade Center will open up to this little spreadsheet. And you can see that there's already tons of columns in here. And these are columns that I've imported from previous semesters. So let's talk about how we create a brand new column. The Create Column button, this tab is on the gray menu here at the top. It's the first thing. So we'll just create a column, and that's going to immediately take you to a brand new page like this. I'm trying to set up some participation grades in here. So we're going to do participation. Right now I'm on week 11, day 1. I'm trying to make this all match each other, but whatever. The column name is the name that I know kind of what it is, but then the CP 11.1, that's what it's going to look like in the gradebook, both in the student view and in my view. All new columns are preset for their primary display to be score, but if you want to do a letter, a text, a percentage, a complete or incomplete, and then I have a couple other schemas that are already preloaded that I'll get to in a couple minutes. But I'm going to keep it at score. And then I always categorize my grades, which is just how I use the weighted column. And then you always have to, when you create a column, you always have to add some sort of points. You can set it to 0, and you can set it obviously up to however many points you can think of. Right now, I'm going to actually set this to 4. And then we can continue to scroll down. In a second, I'm going to come back to this, and I'm going to add a rubric when we talk about how we can set up a rubric. But for right now, I am going to just hit submit. And what happens when I've created that column, it's going to go all the way. It's going to be the last thing that is in my column here, CP11. Okay, and when I click on it, I can have the quick column information. So that will give me sort of the basic information that I need about that column. But I can also always come back and edit that column information. So if I've actually, for whatever reason, mistyped the number of points, I can come back in here and fix that if I actually want, and I can change this actually halfway through the semester if I want, for whatever reason, for students to see a different evaluation of their work rather than just their raw score. It can be something like a percentage or complete or incomplete, and then I'll talk about these other schemas momentarily. So I'm going to use this opportunity to talk about then how to set up a rubric. So here we have this, again, this drop-down menu that's add a rubric. And then I can select a rubric, so one that's already in existence, and can create a new rubric, which I will do in a second, or I can create from existing. So I can kind of use the rubrics that already exist and adjust them. So I'm going to create a new rubric here. I'm going to work through some of the things I'm going to evaluate for participation, and I'm going to talk about maybe using Flipgrid as part of my participation this semester, and I'm going to have the Flipgrid participation as the name of my rubric. And so then I'm going to have some rubric details. I'm going to scroll down here. First, I'm going to decide what kind of rubric it is, if it's based on percentages, points or no score whatsoever. And I'm actually going to do this as no points right now. And I'm also going to take off show criteria weight. And then it's pre-formatted to involve this novice, competent, and proficient for levels of achievement. I don't find that really useful for this rubric, so I'm going to edit that. I'm going to edit novice to simply no. I'm going to edit competent to simply yes. And then I'm going to edit proficient to, I'm just going to actually delete that because I'm not going to need that. Okay. Oops, and I changed this for whatever reason, it should be no points. Okay. And then I'm not going to evaluate students on their formatting for Flipgrid. Instead, I'm going to evaluate them on whether they completed the Flipgrid. Oops, I need to move myself. Okay, so I'm going to have completion. That is, did they ask or answer a question? Then I'm not going to grade them on grammar. Instead, I'm going to grade them on whether they presented, did they present a new idea? And then I need a couple other things. So I'm going to add a row here, add a row. Okay, and I'm going to edit that row. So this is going to be, did they respond to others? Oops. Thoughtfully. I'm going to save that. So now I have set up a rubric, right? And I'm going to submit. And now I can add it to this particular column. Here, the Blackboard automatically points or automatically decides for you that you do not want to share this rubric with students. However, usually I do want to share this rubric with students. So I go all the way to the right. And instead of no, I can say yes with scores, yes without scores, or only after I'm done grading. So for this purposes, I'm just going to do yes without scores. Right? And then I'm going to once again submit this information, and it is now part of that column's information. One of the things that I really, really appreciate when I am dealing with the gradebook is the ability to see the gradebook in a slightly different viewpoint. And so if you go to the third drop-down menu in the gray menu bar, you will see column organization. And I just really appreciate column organization because it allows me to arrange the gradebook in a way that does not drive me insane. One of the things that really bothers me about Blackbook's gradebook is its limited ability to edit once you have created something. So I have here this new CP 11.1, so this class participation for week 11 that I've just created. I'm going to move that up right after class participation for week 10. And I'm going to save that. So anything that I start to do in this column organization, I do have to save on a regular basis, and it forces me again to click to it. So I'm going to go back to column organization. And one of the other things I can do in this view is actually delete things, which I find to be very important, very helpful. So for example, extra credit is always dependent on how the semester goes. So I'm actually going to delete that. And I'm going to have to click through a couple of things, and then it's going to click delete, and then it's going to be gone. Okay. The other thing is I have a hidden quiz. Okay. So I might want to change that. So here I have this quiz. It says it's hidden. I'm going to see if I can show the selected, and then I'm going to submit. And let's see. Okay, so we have, so now I can scroll back and see, for example, aha, here's the Inber quiz that was actually hidden in that original view. So I'm going to stick just a little bit more with rubrics. There's a couple different ways we can access our rubrics. So I'm going to go down here again to course tools, and I'm going to scroll down to the R to my rubrics. So creating a rubric in Blackboard, particularly a really involved rubric, can be quite onerous. It can take time, but it is worth that time. So I'm going to show you all here my writing evaluation rubric. Okay, so I'm going to open this, and you can see here that I have, if I keep scrolling down, I have a number of rows, and then I have the explanation of how all of those points work. And it can be, again, quite exhausting to make these rubrics. However, we can copy them easily and we can export them easily and send them to other classes. So I would really recommend for these involved assignments that you make rubrics and then you can kind of export them and then edit them in other classes. That is quite easy, but starting out can be a challenge. And so one of the first things that I'll do, I'm going to actually copy this because I'm going to use this rubric for different assignments. See here it says adjusted for paper 1. So I want to adjust it for all other papers. So I copy it and it immediately copies, okay, and then I create a copy, okay, and then I'm going to edit. Okay, I'm going to change the name. Okay. And then one of the minor things that changes in my paper 1 and my papers 2 and 3 in this class is actually holding them responsible for their works cited page. So I'm going to go down here to professional writing. Is the works cited in parenthetical and MLA format? And I'm going to change the yes to 1 point. And then I'm going to submit that. I'm happy to show everybody when we go into the webinar what this looks like when you are actually grading a student paper. I don't have any student papers right now, but I can kind of work around and have or pretend to be a student and submit something and show how that works. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to show us one last thing about just adjusting our grade book. So I'm going to go back to the full grade center. And we're going to work on grading schemas. So when I go to manage, okay, I have grading periods and grading schemas. And all of the Blackboard grading schemas are pre-populated with a letter schema. And I've already edited this letter schema, but I recommend everybody looking at this letter schema so that they can adjust it according to what the grade scale is in their syllabus. Blackboard automatically has A pluses and A minuses, B pluses, B minuses, etc. However, it is really easy to adjust this pretty quickly. And I don't say that lightly. Blackboard is not the most, is not the easiest tool, but this is actually pretty simple. So for example, say that it doesn't make any sense for me to have a D plus, okay? There's a C and then everything below that is a D or an F, okay? So I'm gonna get rid of the D plus. All I have to do is delete this row, okay? And that automatically allows for the class to adjust according to its grade scale to this new, or to this removal of this grade, okay? So I'm gonna submit that for right now. Okay. And then it allows me also to create different grading schemas. Comprehension. So say that I have my students watching videos, reading books, and doing a lot of quizzes that are open book, open notes, and I need them to score at least some sort of percentage in order for them to be able to do any of the other material in class. Okay, so then I will have a comprehension schema, for example. And here, again, this is what Blackboard starts you out with, but you can adjust this very easily. So instead of 50 to 100% as an A, I actually want to make that a very small window. So I'm going to say, actually, I need it between 90 and 100 as an A, and anything below 90 is an F, thereby communicating to students that they haven't comprehended enough for them to actually continue on to the next task. So I would submit this. And then I would have this at my disposal when I needed to set up some kind of grade in the gradebook. So for example, let's go back to, actually, let's look at one of these tests. So I have a bunch of tests in the gradebook already. And again, when you create a test in Blackboard, it pre-populates the gradebook, so it's already there. You don't have to add that. But let me show you how I might add this grading schema. So I would go down to Edit Column Information. And it defaults to score, but actually a score is not important because the student can look at this in a number of different ways, being like, oh, I got like 60%, that's good enough. No, I need them to do a comprehension. right? And so that's going to be their primary display. And so when a student actually completes the test and gets below a 90%, it's going to show up as an F for them, and that's going to indicate that they need to retake the test until they get that A. So those are the three basic things I hope to convey to you, and I will hopefully answer questions on July the 8th. And feel free again to email me if you have anything specific that you would like to talk about, because I'm happy to talk about Gradebook with anybody. But anyway, have a good day, and I will talk to you soon.